So let's begin with sort of the news of the week or news of the last 10 days or so, and those are budget related issues. The governor has released his proposed budget, and of course, governors propose, legislatures dispose. The two houses, the House and Senate, of course, have legislative responsibilities with regard to enacting the budget that will eventually be signed by the governor. And maybe we can have a few minutes of conversation about things that just sort of an overview of what you like about that budget, what are areas of concern, and maybe areas that are likely to produce maybe some sparks as we move forward in terms of where the final budget might wind up. Let's start with you, Senator Hoffman. Let's talk about the governor's budget.
I want to start off with one statement, Your Honorable, is that when everybody's talking about the $17 billion surplus, right? And I just want to tell folks there's a couple of nuances here that have been bothering me in the past and bother me now. $1.12 billion of that surplus was money that was underspent in human services. What I mean by underspent was it wasn't spent on those people that we care for that was intended to be spent on. And there was numerous reasons why. Some of it relates to the fact that fee for service, there wasn't really any flexibility. So you had kids with autism that weren't getting the services that they were already budgeted to be paid for and didn't receive those services, right? You had day programs because of population size. You had your adult day services. You had nursing homes, group homes that had to shut down wings of their facilities because of the fact they had staffing related problems because once again, you look at the rate methodology wasn't there. The other thing that's added to that, Judge, is 767 million or so of federal medical assistance program money that's supposed to go into that bucket of human services actually went to the general fund. So when you add it all up, Senator Abeler will tell you it's $1.825 billion of that surplus should have been in human services. And so, in a sense, people that should have gotten services didn't get services. And it bothers me because I think based on that, that money should have stayed or should stay in human services and provide for that. And then what has happened since then, of course, the governor, and I love your statement, propose and dispose. It's like I've heard, that's the first time I've heard that. It's great. I'm going to keep it. But the other one was, the governor proposes and the Senate write the checks, right? So there's going to be a process. And like I said to Senator Abeler, and like Senator Abeler said to me, the governor's proposal on long-term care, it's a good start, but it doesn't stabilize the system, Barry, like the bill that Jim introduced last year and the bill I introduced this year, Senate File 7 last year, Senate File 6 this year. It actually stabilizes those industries that we care about. PCAs, home health aides, assisted living, nursing homes, group homes, and those services that are important to folks that we care about within the state of Minnesota. And so that's kind of the overall. I just wanted to highlight again to you, why is it that Minnesota 1.825 billion sitting in that surplus that should be over here in health and human services? And that's my pitch for the evening, Your Honor.
Senator Abeler, your thoughts.
That's his story, and he's sticking to it. And we'll try to be broader. I've been in office for a while, I told you, and I thought I would be covering more territory in my time, but actually, both John and I have gone narrower and deeper, and we've been deeply immersed in the disability and the senior and county services side, all the waiver programs, close to 200,000 people under our watch, and we spend, what is it, John? $30 billion a biennium or something like that, state and federal, which is it's real money, and it's a really challenging population. And we've, in a bipartisan basis, have actually been pushing the governor to notice this population. And if you look at the budget just now, to go a little broader, he spent if he gets the spending ideas, it's going to be a $65 billion budget. There was a time we thought 35 billion was an enormous amount of money, but we were wrong. I think the old budget was like 48 billion or something like that. And So there's a $17.6 billion surplus. But if you don't mind me talking, John, so that wasn't quite enough. So he, in his budget, he took over $1 billion out of the Healthcare Access Fund, a couple $100 million from the reinsurance fund, which helps hardware store owners to get their insurance at an affordable price. Decided to raise the sales tax from 1/8%, raise car tabs $400 million over the 4 years, increased park fees to attend, fishing licenses, and wants to do a family leave program that will add 0.6% to the payroll of the as a tax to the places and to every business in Minnesota. And so and in that he still gave us pocket change in terms of the area that we care about so dearly. The human service long-term care sector, which is group homes, nursing homes, services for people with disabilities, is on the verge of collapse. And so if anybody's looking for a job, we need 53,000 employees to do services to those very fragile human beings in those areas. And there's nowhere to find them. And they've spent down to the fumes in their reserves. And we've tried everything we could do. I haven't stood on one leg and held my breath, Senator Hoffman and Barry, but everything else but that to get the governor to notice. We've got hearing after hearing. And we were close to the finish line last time with a bill that would have injected $2 billion into the system, $1 billion state and $1 billion federal. And then, as you recall, negotiations kind of broke off at the end of last session, which doesn't change the need of the people who are in dire straits. So anyway, but what you're seeing here is bipartisan agreement that we got to rescue these folks. We got to keep their services stable, or really bad things will happen.
And in addition to that, Judge, bicameral, you have folks over in the House. I was just with some Republican members of the Mock-Manures Committee, which mirrors the committee that Jim and I have, and they were saying the exact same thing Jim and I are saying to you right here. So it's not, and there was no discussion of Republican Democrat in that conversation. It was about how are we going to achieve what we need for the people that are the most vulnerable in the state of Minnesota. And it absolutely bothers me. I don't know, without, and last night too, the conversation, one individual said, hey, how come nobody's talking about long-term care? And that's what got it going, was the fact that that's all Jim and I have been talking about, Your Honor, is the long-term care places. And it just doesn't bode well for me to say that our priorities are there, especially when this happens. 1.3 million people are 65 and older in the state of Minnesota, right? We have more people that are 65 and older than we do that are in K-12 education. Yet when you look at the priorities, and I'm not taking anything away from education, right? Because I served in education locally, I served it on the state level, and I served it on a federal level, and I know the needs are there, right? And now what you're getting from the folks in the schools are mental health, substance use. You're probably seeing that in the legal world, right? I mean, you're starting to see an increase of youth that are just absolutely, being exposed to addiction that is not, there, and it's because of the fact that there's some mental health. So there's co-occurring stuff that's occurring, right? And then this goes in line with the Wilder Foundation when they talk about, our homeless population, 90% of our homeless population has some kind of disability, plus they have substance use. There's some co-occurring stuff that's happening in there. And that just bothers me. It really does. One more thing, Judge. The nursing homes, for example, right? When you talk about Jim's statement of 53,000 people that we could go into the caregiving facility, that's across all those buckets that we talked about. Just specifically nursing homes, because of how the rate restructuring is happening in them. There's one in the western suburbs at $7 million in the hole because of what Senator Abeler said they tapped into reserves. There's another one that has over 1,000 residents in all of its facilities, and they've been around for many years. And I won't tell you the name of them, but if you're on a Friday night, you say Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, right? So here's this organization that is really looking at possibly shutting their doors, Barry, because of the financial impact of 4 to 5 years. That keeps me up at night. So.
Well, we will have the opportunity to continue the discussion on that question because I know that it's a subject of concern to both of our guests and also to our viewers, and we frequently get questions, particularly on the nursing home piece. So we'll come back to that. But let's move on to some other questions from our viewers.